morning and good morning to your listeners.
Yes,
Sorry
thank.
for my delayed arrival. I'm not sure what transpired before, but nonetheless, happy to be here.
All right, Dr. Campbell. Let us start off with the first pillar, justice for all. There are a few things there that I wish to get some clarification on. Firstly, the manifesto list consideration of fixed election dates and term limits. Could you explain exactly what the plans are for that and why is the use of the word consideration? What's the position?
Well, let me just put some context to the overall manifesto first. So, we've been in opposition for 2 terms, and it is prudent for a party that is in opposition to do sufficient research consultation with the people so that you can put forward a slew of proposals going into the election that would benefit from their approval and participation. So we have listened and consulted with the people through various ways, messaging polls, focus groups, the delegates at the party's annual conference. Each spokesperson would have a task force in place that would have made recommendations, would have discussed these at shadow cabinet retreats, etc., different presentations at the various shadow cabinet meetings and presentations within the parliament. Then you have a committee now that pulls from all of those and put forward a document at the end of it that we can all defend. Now, in terms of some of these governance issues and justice issues, we realize, if anything, this campaign period has proven to us that it is unwise for us to continue without having a fixed election date because the manipulation that takes place in calling the election certainly inconveniences a lot of persons. I've heard persons from the private sector, business persons who have been complaining with this protracted campaign that they just want it to be over with and for things to go back to normal. They've gotten to a point where they're like, whoever wins, wins, but let's just get it over with. And so it is important for us to consider and review these things. Now, you'd have recalled that the Jamaica Labour Party made a promise to get it done within the first 100 days in 2016. I listened at the launch of their campaign and they positioned the argument and blamed COVID for it and made it appear as if it was a promise from 2020. It was actually a promise from 2016.
Which is the point,
And
Dr. Campbell? Why, having given that context, why is it that the PMP is not committing firmly to that issue?
because some of these issues you have to consult with the public and see what is the most appropriate way to get it done. There is a commitment to look at it with a view to implementing it. But what you don't want to do is to give uh, what you don't want to repeat what took place in the past by saying within the first 100 days you're going to do it and then not execute on that. So it is something that we will pursue and seek to get the general buy-in of the public to ensure that we can have it implemented.
All right, let's move on to the next issue on that under this pillar. The issue of making the Caribbean Court of Justice Jamaica's final appellate court is listed almost as a commitment by the PMP, except that I have a challenge given the constitutional deadlock that we are in now, where the opposition has withdrawn from the process because the Jamaica Labour Party, the ruling government, has not included the CCJ in its phased approach, the first phase. If you were to take government on September 4, the constitutional framework requires that there must be some reaching across the other side. In other words, the JLP, if it is now in opposition, you'd require its participation. How it is that the PMP, with your current stand, envision that you're going to get the support of the JLP to make this happen?
Well, the constitutional reform process that was underway did not really consult with people in a genuine way and reach out to seek to get consensus. You have to have consultation in order for you to get consensus. If not, then you're just dictating what should happen. And so, just engaging people and creating the atmosphere for them to participate in a meaningful way in the discussion is important. You have to also be guided by what the people that you're governing over, what their views are. And consistently in the national polls, persons have said that they are more inclined towards the CCJ being our final appellate court than continuing with the Privy Council. And there are various reasons for that. So if the people that you're governing over, the majority, wants to go in a particular direction, there is no practical, logical argument that is being given not to move in that direction. We've already committed to the funding. We've already made the funding. We do understand that it's an itinerant court that can move to the different jurisdictions. And the fact of the matter is that the Privy Council itself, we are not even sure if they want us to remain there. Now, for you to hang your justice in the balance like that, where someone could just get up and say, all right, we no longer offer these services to you, I don't think that that is the full independence that a nation would want. And the cost associated with going to the Privy Council, unless you are an affluent individual, someone who's well off, you're not going to be able to take a case to the Privy Council.
Yeah. With respect, Dr. Campbell, we're not asking about the benefits or the pros and cons between the CCJ and the Privy Council. Those are arguments have long been put forward. The issue is where we are now, currently, both
but
the JLP
that's the point that
and
I'm
the
making.
PMP.
That's the very point that I'm making. That there is no logical argument that has been mooted thus far as to why we should not go to the CCJ.
And how will you get the JLP, the opposition, to come to that consensus, that conclusion that you have? In other words, how is the process going to work?
Politicians always respond to numbers, Politicians always respond to the majority. And I'm saying, once you go there, you have the proper consultation, the necessary public education. The public is already in favor of the CCJ. I can't see how a party can continue to oppose a view that is supported by the majority of the public that they seek to gain favor from. So to that extent, I don't see that the JLP would be continuing along that path, because it really is, whatever they're putting forward is just a specious argument because of some traditional position that has been taken by the party, and not something that is in logics and common sense as to what we need to do.
The point remains still hanging. How do we get the issue through the parliament before we even get to the issue of the referendum as required by the constitutional framework?
Consultation leads to consensus.
Right.
All we can do is to have the necessary consultation in an open way that all views can contend, and we can make what is the best decision for Jamaica. The people of Jamaica have said that they would want Jamaica to move to the CCJ. The issue here seems to be, why would a political party continue to oppose
At
what
point did the people of Jamaica say they wanted the CCJ?
In every opinion poll? I've said this repeatedly in the last 5 minutes.
All right, let's move on to the other issue in the interest of time. The manifesto also lists the party to say that they're going to end the extraction of the $11.4 billion from the NHT. I want to know, well, I'm going to make it a question twofold. One, I want to know what's the plan to replace that sum of money in the national budget. And also, at the same time, the PMP has listed, I count about at least $5 billion funds, which far surpass the $11.4 billion from the NHT. So when you add the $11.4 billion from the NHT that you will no longer have, plus the other funds that you plan to set up to cover different areas, how is that will be funded?
Well, we went through all of this in April. We actually had a press conference and went through all of this. It was costed at $32 billion. Do remember that the country has a budget of $1.3 trillion, and that the government will determine what are its priorities. I actually find it very curious when persons ask that, because every government that comes to govern will have their priorities. There is something in a budget that is called discretionary spending. After you take out your wages and salaries and your debt payment, you do have discretionary spending, which is what separates two political parties as to what they will prioritize and spend that funding on. We have put forward some solutions as to things that we think will be beneficial to the public. The NHT was never designed to be supporting the consolidated fund in the way it has been used now. That decision was taken when the country was brought to a precarious position at the time when the current Prime Minister promised that we need to take bitter medicine. A lot of persons seem to have amnesia concerning what took place in Jamaica between 2007 and 2011 and the position that we were in, that we had failed every IMF test, we've been locked out of the international financial markets, and that it took a lot of political will by Portia Simpson Miller and Dr. Peter Phillips to rescue the economy of Jamaica and to put some structural things in place. When we came through that process, we had to use $11 billion from the NHT in order to supplement the budget. At that time, Prime Minister Holness opposed. They even took the matter to court. Now, it has been continued for the last 9 years. For the last 10 years, we've extracted over $100 billion from the NHT. And what has happened is that housing has been placed outside of the reach of the average Jamaican. Even the loan portfolio was taken from the NHT and given to the commercial banks. The preferential rate given to public sector workers, members of the disabled community, was taken away.
I'm going to be out of time, Dr. Campbell. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the question really, though, is, how is that when you stop that? Where's the source coming? And every time I hear the response from the PNP regarding the discretionary spending, it avoids the response or the question still in terms of where's the money, the financing, because the budget doesn't have what figure you said, the $1 trillion figure sitting down there in terms of where's the government going to get that money. So, for example, the PNP has taken issue with the securitization of the Norman Manley Airport and others, which is where the JLP government has gotten some amount of funding from. The question remains, where is the funding coming from, even before you get to the discretionary spending?
I do understand what you're saying. It may be ignorance as to what a budget is. The country, you pay taxes, direct and indirect taxes, which is what a government uses, or loans or grants, in order to fund, or if you have any form of income generating thing that the government will be participating in. That's what you use to fund your budget. The country's budget is 1.3 trillion. That's not up for debate. That's what it is. Out of that, you pay your loan, you pay your interest, you pay your staff, and you do have the rest of it for what is called discretionary spending.
So is it that you're proposing
how much you're
taxes?
going to spend on? No, we are not. The country's budget of 1.3 trillion currently does not take into consideration any new taxes. I don't know how you got to that.
You because your response to me was that it comes from taxes.
Because we currently pay taxes. That's what I'm saying. There seems to be a serious misunderstanding here as to how the process works.
Certainly not on my part, Dr. Campbell.
It is, though. It is. Because for you to ask that question when I say taxes, that is new taxes, as if to say we don't currently pay income taxes. Well,
no, Dr. Campbell, with respect, taxes, are you saying that the $1.3 million is a fixed amount sitting in an account that the government has access to?
I'm not saying that. I don't know how you got to that. What I'm saying to you is that Jamaica has a budget annually. That budget is funded from the taxes that the citizens pay. It is funded from loans or grants and whatever income generating mechanism that a government has in place. That is how the country has funded its budget for years. That is how every country in the world fund their budget. To say that we are going to continue to make the loan payments, we are going to continue to pay our public sector workers, and the balance of money that is left after that is called your discretionary spending, that a JLP government will determine what it is that are their priorities, and a PNP government will determine what are their priorities. The priorities of the PNP could not be that of the JLP. If that is so, then we would not need to have two political parties.
All right. I'm out of time, Dr. Campbell. Thank you so very much for speaking to us this morning on the morning agenda.
You're welcome.
All right. Stay with us, listeners. We come back right.
There you have it, a live interview with the General Secretary of the People's National Party, Dr. Dayton Campbell. He's also the MP candidate for Eastern Westmoreland. and you hear him speaking about the People's National Party Manifesto. We're going to have a member of the People's National Party come on the Make We Talk program to explain more about the manifesto that the PNP is presenting to the people of Jamaica. And I might say myself, the manifesto sounds very good for our people. And we're going to do have someone come on the platform to speak to us some more about it. Stand by.
We've realized that whenever we put out something, what the JLP tries to do is just to modify what we put out. So we said we're going to build 50,000 houses. Sunday night, the Prime Minister said they're going to build 60,000. Even though within the last administration, he has only built 20-something thousand. So we understand that they're going to do that.
The second portion is that we looked at the big ideas. Knowing the pension of the JLP to steal them, we decided that they always be playing the cat and mouse, where we go and then they come and say something else. So we had a second component, which I think will excite a lot of people.
The manifesto, launched under an 11-point plan, was titled Mission Jamaica Love. This abbreviation, Jamaica Love, focuses on several sectors such as housing, land reform, education, culture, and anti-corruption.
We must restore and will restore the Office of the Political Ombudsman as an independent watchdog. We must ensure the independence and effectiveness of the Integrity Commission to enable it to pursue its statutory mandate without fear or favor, including desirable improvements such as the modification of the so-called gag clause. I've said in the coming elections there will be candidates who are under investigation for illicit enrichment, and the voters will not know who they are other than one.
But will people even read the manifesto? It's a reality both parties grapple with each election cycle.
There are some persons that won't read it, and that's why we have done audio versions of it, and it will be on the different platforms. We've done a patois version so that persons can understand it as well. And you know, the smaller document will have some more bite-sized things that they can easily assimilate and understand.
Not a lot of details, though, on how all the plans will be funded. But in terms of its plans to build more houses for youth, for example, the PNP said should it form the next government, NHT funds will no longer be used to service the national budget and will only be used to build houses. The manifesto was drafted by a committee of the party, but the PNP says stakeholders were consulted.
We think it's practical because most of it came from the stakeholder consultation. They told us some of the things that they wanted done, and those are the things that we have put forward. And so we think there are practical solutions for complex problems that the society is faced with.
And my preliminary look on this PNP manifesto, which runs for 30 pages, the PDF version, the online version that I have. The presentation is very good. In terms of the look of the document, it looks good. You can see a lot of thought into how the layout is. And just looking through preliminarily, it looks like a good document. It does look like a good document. Their Mission Jamaica Love. So what they've done, as Chevron would have explained in his rap, the news story we carried at 6, J, justice for all, the J in Jamaica, the A, access to quality education, M, modern infrastructure, A, agriculture and food security, I, innovation and industry, C, care for the vulnerable and health services, A, accountability in governance, and then love, Jamaica love, so that's Jamaica, love, land, housing and ownership, O, opportunity for youth, V, violence prevention and safer communities, E, environmental resilience. So Jamaica Love, the acronym, yeah? Mission Jamaica Love, that's where the Jamaica Love comes from. And there are some items here that, as I say, it looks good on paper and the whole thing. So I zeroed in on what they had to say about crime.
There you have it. We just had a live broadcast, a simulcast, an interview with Dr. Dayton Campbell on a radio station in Jamaica. This is where we're going to say so long for. No, we will be back on pretty soon. We're working on some things to come back on to speak to you, our listeners, our viewers. Big things to come our way. It's election in Jamaica, election 2025. As I said before, the Make We Talk is election headquarters. So until you join us then, I'm Jeffrey Tavares saying so long. May God bless you. And thank you all for tuning in, and may God bless our island home, Jamaica land we love. Have a great morning, everybody.
Unity is strength. Make we reason. Make we talk. If we see corruption in any shape or form, we're going to highlight it. Make we talk. Jeffrey Tavares represents yard and broad and the entire diaspora. As long as it affects the life of our nation, uncover the truth. Make we reason. Make we talk. And we don't care about no vumva viva va. No upper echelon. Nobody is not above the law. As long as it now help Jamaica. Make we talk. Make we talk.
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk.